Hey guys, I'm Jade, and this is the main cart. I'm here with Cataanda, Education and Community, and yeah, we're here this week to talk about kids and teenagers doing way too much too soon with their hair. I'm sure this is especially for people who are, who are parents, who are carers, people who have, I don't know, nephews, nieces that have teenagers or have seen them go through it. It just feels like that it's a very different place to what it used to be. I remember when I was in school and everything felt very simple. It's like you had your hair out, or you might have your hair in cane rows or in bunches or in some kind of protective style. Maybe you'd have it in like really simple braids, but it was nothing elaborate. You were very, I think it was very, it was always really practical. It was about being practical with children and their hair, and even teenagers and their hair. And as you start going to college and university, that's when you'd see people doing a lot more. Whereas what I see now is like kids in wigs and weaves and braids and changing their hair every 2, 3 weeks. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And is this not causing damage to their hair?
Yeah, so my experience as a kid, and I guess, mm, I don't know about teenagers. My experience as a teenager was pretty much the same as when I was a kid. However, as kids, children back then, you wore your hair in ponytails, as Jade, you said, we wore our hair in cornrows. We wore our hair in single plaits. Um, my mom would oftentimes give me two cornrows, which I always felt like that was punishment hair. Because I'm like, Mom, why do I have to have these two stupid braids? Either two cornrows or two plaits, like two Sealy braids, two Miss Sealy braids. Because it wasn't really fancy. I mean, fast forward to
Mm.
now, two cornrows is the thing. People are paying top dollar for two cornrows. People are adding extensions for two cornrows. And then they dubbed it, the other culture dubbed it boxer braids, which we know they're cornrows. We're not naming this style that's been around for ages and ages that dates back to, you know, our far ancestors. However, that's the styles that we wore as kids. You know, you had your ponytails, you may have bows in your hair, barrettes in your hair, knockers or balls or whatever you guys
Mm.
called them. And that was your style until probably like, I would say middle school, junior high school. This is how you
Mm.
wore your hair. Um, I would also say, though, some people in probably upper elementary to middle school, junior high school, they did have Jerry curls or leisure curls
Mm.
back then, but it was nothing to the extent of what we're seeing now. And we're actually seeing this now on not only upper elementary school children, but lower elementary, so kindergarten, even before kindergarten, three
Mm.
year 3 year olds, 4 year olds. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, what is happening? So I think there's a lot to unpack here. Um, I'm trying to maybe look at it as maybe a mom would versus an actual hairstylist
Mm.
or um but I've been an auntie forever, and my niece never did those things. Well, I won't say never, but she did get within her braids. She did get um added hair, like she got feed in braids when she was in upper elementary, junior high school. But before then, not really so much. So
Mm.
yeah, it's a conversation to be had for sure.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know, for me, it feels like kids are doing too much too soon with their hair. And it's not to say that they should never want to try something a bit different. But when we're at a stage where like kids and teenagers are switching up their styles so quickly as well, and the point of a protective style is for it to be in for long enough that you're not constantly having to manipulate your hair. Because the more often you manipulate your hair, the more at risk you are of causing some kind of like damage, like especially to things like your edges or even to like the you know, if they're constantly straightening it as well, that can have like an impact on your curl pattern. So it's not just the styles that are being done, it's also the frequency that hair is being changed, because I don't really think, for me, it's not sustainable for anyone to be changing their hair every like to a style anyway, like in a major way every 2 to 3 weeks. If you have braids in, they should last quite a long time. But I'm literally seeing teenagers. And when I say this, like for context for everybody else, like I do track and field. I've been doing that since I was like 12 or 13. I still train now. So the track that I go to, I would say like a good 70% of the people at that track are teenagers. They're kids between the age of like 13 to, I want to say, 17, 18. And the changes that you will see within a couple of weeks, it's like one day a girl will come in with box braids down to her waist. 2 weeks later, she's in a wig, and I'm like, you're a teenager. Why? Even as a grown adult, why would you do it? As a person, full stop, why? But as like a teenager, why is there so much? I don't know whether it feels like it's pressure on them to constantly like keep up a look or keep up an image, but it's just so a lot being done so young and so often that could be causing this damage. And yeah, it feels like a lot of it is to do with image and pressure, and maybe that's to do with what they're exposed to, because we didn't have that same level of exposure. We didn't. Social media wasn't a thing. Showing my age now, but social media wasn't a thing until I was like halfway through secondary school, which is high school in the US. So I think I was probably about halfway through / on my way out when social media started coming in. So there wasn't really any comparison other than TV. There wasn't a lot of comparison that you could do because you didn't get exposed to what everybody was doing all the time. And so I guess that lack of exposure also has an impact, right? So I think a lot of it is like, why are kids and teenagers, do they feel the need to do this? Like, why do they feel the need to change up their hair so often? And some of it in like, again, like very not like adult grown up ways, but I've always viewed like wigs and weaves for just like big people. I
Grandma,
don't I don't see
wigs.
why kids need to be having wigs. It's like, have your natural hair out, have braids in, have a protectors, but why? And maybe that's just me, but I just don't think that young teenagers anyway should be feeling the need to put their hair underneath a wig or in weaves, but that's what you're seeing now.
So again, it's a lot to unpack. First, to piggyback off of what you're saying, I will say when I grew up, well, I won't say that. It's gonna really, date me and age me. I will say it. We didn't have computers in high school.
Mm,
We had typewriters. So
mm,
that's the era that I come from. That's the generation that I am. Proud Gen X. Okay. And so obviously we didn't have social media. We didn't
mm,
have social media until I was an adult, like a
mm, mm.
good aged adult. So I think there's that. We had magazines, we had
Mm, mm.
TV, we had movies,
Yeah.
we had commercials.
Yes.
We sort of like modeled ourselves, or gained inspiration from commercials and magazines.
Yeah.
So if you think even now in magazines, I won't say so much commercials, but for sure in magazines like Vogue or like, Essence, although Essence has made a complete shift from what it was then.
Mm,
Um, we had a magazine. We had a lot of junior magazines that was like glamour for teenagers, and I forget what that was called.
Yeah.
We had Teen Vogue, and so if you think of that, it's a different type of beauty aesthetic that is
Mm,
showcased in magazines. So it's clean, it's classic, it's more on the natural side.
mm,
It's a lot different now, even when you open the Vogue magazine or the, I guess I'll still say Essence magazine. It wasn't a lot of heavy makeup, even
mm,
kids. I mean, I was a makeup wearer as a kid, but it was nice. It was classic. It wasn't like this Instagram look that we're seeing. It was a slight enhancement. Um, so those are that's the inspiration that we had, but also we gained inspiration from our family members, our elders, our
mm,
grandmothers, and the look that they wore and presented, because children learn what they see.
mm,
So me myself, again, being a child, my mom was in cosmetology school when I was very young. I think I've talked about that before. However, she was a fashionista. She was wearing the makeup, doing the hair and all things, but it was nothing crazy. Like, we were
mm,
in cosmetology school, and the only thing that I would say I was teaching, because the instructors didn't know how to do these styles, but
mm.
was braided extensions.
Okay.
Um, and then we were doing sew-ins, but it was on a very small, or I'll say lower scale than what it is. We were adding a couple tracks in here or there in between the hair, just to give it volume or just to give it extra added length. We weren't doing full-on sew-ins and things like that.
Yeah.
In our cosmetology school, I don't think that became popular amongst regular people,
Yeah.
everyday people, until like the 90s, even further out into the 90s, 2000s, because people then were still trying to hide the fact that they're even adding hair, like they're even wearing
Yeah.
extensions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So to see little girls didn't wear fake hair when I was a kid.
Mm,
And I don't really think there's a couple things here. If you're going to do it, you have to make sure you're taking care of your child's hair underneath all of that stuff. However, I
mm,
feel like a lot of teenagers, to your point, Jade, feel like they have to wear these styles because their hair was ruined when they were a child. So
mm,
the thing that we have to be conscious of is, when you are styling a little girl's hair, you can't put ponytails that are too tight, that's pulling
mm,
their edges and snatching their edges and slathering on all of this edge control and braid gel and all of that, to where it's pulling the hair taut, very taut, or at this point tight, and applying
mm,
too much tension, because people don't know this, but your hair follicles are actually developing still when you're in like puberty. Like, they're not fully developed until beyond puberty. So they're much like your organs.
mm.
They're fully like they're not fully developed when you're a child.
Yeah.
They're in development. So the things that you're doing to this kid's hair when, she is younger or he is younger, it's going
Mm,
to affect them in the long run.
yeah.
So the hair follicles are very important to keep in mind. If you get traction alopecia to a certain extent is reversible with treatment. This is
Yeah.
why we have trichology and hair loss practitioners like myself, because it is reversible. However, when you get scarring
Mm,
to the scalp, but i.e. hair follicle, that's not reversible. And
mm,
that can happen in one time of doing something that's detrimental to your scalp and your follicle, or it could happen over a course of time. So like Jade is saying, over manipulating or
mm,
manipulating hair too much, or people are, well, I'm not sure so much now, but back when I was younger, people were relaxing a child's hair at 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, and they're not
mm,
thinking that this is affecting the hair follicle for years to come. So I think that is the key here, is to make sure if you are doing these styles, I mean, God forbid, do not put a wig on your child's hair unless they have alopecia and they don't grow hair, then that actually helps the self-esteem of the child. However, if the child has her own hair that grows from her scalp, I don't necessarily think the child should be wearing wigs. And then sometimes I'm thinking, is this just for clickbait on Instagram? Is your child really out there wearing an actual full-on lace wig as a little girl, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old? Like, I just can't wrap my mind around that. Extensions, as far as braids, I get that. It makes it easier for the parent, easier for the child, because we used to have wash day. There was no pushing out wash day. How much you dreaded it. You were getting your hair shampooed every week, period. At least in my family. And it was something that was not dreadful. You know, you may, if you're a little girl that's tender-headed, you may, you know, shed a couple tears or something, but it wasn't dreadful because you were always excited about the style and the look you're going to have after wash day. Like, you're going to love your hair, whether if you're getting ponytails or braids, or if you're wearing your hair, like we used to say, oh, we want to wear our hair down. That was the term down. It wasn't like a blowout. It wasn't a silk press. It was like, I want to wear my hair down. I don't know why we called it that, because braids are down, but whatever. We kind of knew with that terminology that it means your hair was going to be loose and you're going to straighten your hair. So we were excited about it, and it was a bonding time for whomever was combing your hair. And typically it was a family member, your grandmother, your mother, your sister, your cousin, your auntie. None of my uncles combed hair, but I guess some people's uncles may, some people's dads. My dad was not going anywhere near my hair, and I'm glad he didn't. But these days, you know, a lot more people are into hair. So that was the role of, you know, your mom, your aunt, your cousin, your sister, whomever. And it was a fun time. Like, you would sit between the legs of your grandmother, your mom, and they would have, this is what happened. My mom would have the cup of water, and she would have the hair grease, the hair food she would use, or the Blue Magic. And I'm not putting those things in my hair these days, guys. For those of you that do, I don't think Jade does. For those of you that do, you know, by any means, do whatever you can to care for your hair, as long as it looks nice and as long as it's not damaging your hair. However, the water was there, because that's a whole other conversation and topic for another podcast, but we needed the hydration prior to putting that grease in our hair, because you're locking in the water that you just added. Or the moisture you just added, because that grease is so thick and heavy. But anyway, we weren't sitting down between the legs of our mom or grandmothers, you know, and getting a full-on sew-in, or getting like braids to the kneecaps. We were just getting our regular hair braided. We were making sure our scalps were clean. They were making sure they were, back then, greasing the scalp. And we had hair that was thriving and flourishing. Fast forward to today, there's just so much. Kids these days and teenagers, they have so much like in their face. I don't believe children, even some age levels of teens, should have social media, because a lot of social media is not positive, especially when it comes to image. And they are talking about, and it's common, you know, knowledge that kids are being bullied on social media. Kids are actually, you know, have a lack of self-esteem and self-confidence because of what they're seeing on social media. I don't look like the Instagram model, so I'm not adequate. I'm not good enough. I don't look good. My body sucks. I have baby fat cheeks. My lips are too small, and now I want to get injections at 12. Like, and by any means, y'all, I'm not against cosmetic enhancements. I'm a beauty girl at heart, and I'm not against that. But at a certain age, at 12, you have the best skin, you have the best hair, you have the best everything that you're ever going to have. So you
Mm.
don't need to, these kids don't need those things. So I don't know how to, I guess I don't want to say put a stop to this, but how to make it a point that we still have to instill into children that their hair is gorgeous as it grows out of their scalp, that their skin
Mm.
is amazing as it is. They don't need to bleach it, or they don't need,
Mm.
they don't need these anti-aging creams because, little girl, you don't have a wrinkle in sight. Parents that are buying these anti-aging creams and skincare products for these little girls, like, it beats me. But anyway, when it comes to hair, there's so much we can do with our hair. There's so much that, it's obvious now. It's the talk of, the natural hair community. Black girls can grow hair, but if you don't take care of the hair, then you're going to feel like you need these enhancements that are really not suitable for children or some teenagers. And we just have to do better with taking care of ourselves in general, just being
Yeah.
healthier, especially in our hair. So
Yeah, and I think when we look at like kids as they're growing up, again, like you said, a lot of it is children what's the saying? They won't do as you say, they'll do as you do, or
yes.
something along those lines. So like what they're doing is they're kind of like emulating what they see, which is a lot of people with
Yeah.
like lots of amazing and different and really creative styles. And it's not to say that that creativity shouldn't be encouraged, but I think it shouldn't ever be at the expense of the health of their hair.
Yes.
And they should be taught those things. They should be taught, oh, okay, well, it's fine if you want to have braids, but you can't be having a different set of braids every 3 weeks because you're gonna damage your hairline. You're gonna damage your edges. You need to leave them in for like 6 to 8 weeks, then take a break, then go back and have your hair braided again. Like they need to be educated about what good hair care looks like, so that when they're in a position where they can afford to either get their hair done themselves, or if they've got a friend that's really good at hair, they can go to their friend and get their hair done. Then at least they know what they're doing. And that's another thing, is like it's cost. It's the cost. That was that.
It must be rich because I don't understand how they afford it.
But I don't know if it's parents paying for these things, or again, kids will have a bit of money of their own. And then it might be like a friend that's good at hair. If you've got, when I was in school, especially when I was in, again, secondary school in the UK, high school in the US, but there was a girl in my year that was really good at hair. And I would just ask her to cane row the front of my hair, and I'd have the back out. And that was somebody that I knew in school, and they were good at it. So it's not always that they're spending money to get some of these things done, at least when it comes to braiding and cane rows anyway. But it could be that they know somebody that's just really good, and then they're getting that person to do their hair. So it's actually free or maybe cheaper for them. And that might also incentivize, okay, I can then get my hair done however many times that I want. But I think it's the mix of like I said, the frequency, and then also the different styles, because it's like, why are, again, teenagers wearing wigs? Why? I don't, like you said, at that age, your hair is probably the strongest it's going to be. Might be, if you're looking after it, kind of the healthiest it could be. Why then and again, if you keep putting wigs on, and if they're cheap wigs as well, that's where the damage can be done. If they're cheap and they're not done in a way that's actually protecting your hair, they can do more harm than good. And then you have these teenage girls who are like, oh my gosh, like I'm losing like my edges and my hairline. And then they're taking like the front of their hair and using baby hairs to kind of present a hairline because they've damaged theirs already. And it's just like, because you're doing too much too soon. And like you said, if you do too much damage too soon, it can get to a point there's almost irreversible damage. unless you then have the time and the money to go and find somebody like Cataanda who can teach you how to fix the problem that's been created. So I think that at the moment, I'm just like, how do we support children? How do we support teenagers? How do we give them the education and the information that they need so that when they're in control of their hair, which kids are, well, teenagers are the ones that end up being in control of their hair at that age, right? Because they are doing their hair before they go off to college or high school. Whereas children, it's very much their parents are in control. How do we educate them and help them to the point that when they're able to make those decisions, that they're making better decisions about their hair? I think that's the big thing. That's the end result that I think we should be aiming towards. It's we can't stop them from indulging social media because even if they don't have a phone, they can go on the internet and look up Instagram. Or they can create an Instagram account on a desktop computer. So you can't stop that influence from coming in. But what you can do is give them the education and the knowledge so that even if that influence is there, they're like, okay, yeah, my friends are changing up their hair every few weeks, but I don't have to do that.
I just wrote down some notes because you just
Okay.
dropped a lot. So I want to kind of touch on. First thing is the frequency of changing your hair or your styles when you're wearing a protective style or just in general. So I think depending on the style, it's okay to switch it up every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. It's more because the style itself, if it's not over manipulated, if it's not excess tension, if it's not, being caked up with, and I don't want to keep saying this, but it's just using it in this way actually really bothers me because I do work with friends and I don't want y'all thinking that I don't want to work with a braid gel or I don't want to test a braid gel or edge control. However, I feel like there's a time and a place for everything. And the excess usage of braid gels and edge controls poses a problem. There are edge controls out there that you can reset. You don't necessarily have to repeat the application each and every day or each and every time you get a little flyaway. And that's the other thing. I feel like you get one flyaway and you want to go in and smooth it out by any means necessary. Like our is our hair, and it does not have to look like it's sculpted 24/7. Yeah, when you first get it done, you want it to look like that because you want to extend the longevity of the style, but it does not every single day have to look like you just left the sculptor. It does not have to look like that. So that's one thing. There is like a fine line between leaving your protective style in too long. I don't recommend that you go beyond, to your point, 8 weeks, but I do recommend, especially for braids, a lot of times the 6-week mark, because at this point you're starting to see some grow out. You're starting to get that tension from the extension hair on the hair. Now, if you're boxless or if you're knotless box braids, that could be a little bit different because it is less tension based on the way that the hair is added in. So it's fed in versus just being a huge knot of hair right here at the root. But you definitely can go too long because once you start to see that grow, it's starting to collect dirt, debris, excess sebum, things from the environment, lint balls sometimes you find in the base of the braid. Like there's a lot going on there. So it's better to release that and take those, do your takedown and release all of that before it gets too much or before it accumulates into too much of a buildup, because then you have a different type of takedown and you need different types of products to actually assist in that. And I just think there's a fine line. So I was a girl not necessarily in elementary. However, I probably never really wore my style longer than 2 or 3 days just because, again, my mom was she was in cosmetology school and she was a fashionista. So you're not gonna, wear this style too long. We're gonna switch it up. We're gonna instead of 3 ponytails, you're gonna have 2 ponytails. So constantly getting my hair combed, which is good because brushing the hair 100 strokes per night, that used to be the thing back then, will help to encourage hair growth. Because what you're doing is you're actually pushing the natural oils from the root down through to the end, so your hair never really gets dry. The brushing, kind of stimulates the scalp. And so it is a good help. But I don't even know if we're really using brushes, like natural or bristle brushes these days. So that's the thing. I'm not against switching up the hairstyle, but the types of hairstyles that you are choosing and that you are doing, just making sure that you have the right products, that you have the right technique down. You're not pulling the hair too tightly, and you're not overusing product to where you're caking up, at the hairline, trying to lay these baby hairs. Now, when you said that before about the wigs and the edges, we went to Naomi Campbell. We absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous. But that first time that image hit social media, where we saw, oh girl, don't have any edges, like here, and it's because of all of that. However, she's a supermodel. She was constantly getting her hair switched up. I'm sure back then, not a lot of people knew how to do her hair type. She was wearing wigs and weaves. However, it wasn't properly cared for underneath. So that's always the thing. My biggest thing, if you choose, even for your child or if you teenagers that are watching, if you choose to do those styles, make sure your main focus is on your hair underneath. Because there may come a time where you can't get those styles. There may come a time where you might not be able to, you didn't get the allowance that you thought you were going to get. So you can't afford to go out and buy that hair or that wig. And now you're going to have to rock your natural hair. You're going to be, how are you going to feel like on the inside as showing up as your true self with your natural hair? If you're not taking care of it, you're not going to have edges, or it's not going to have maybe the length that you want to see, or there's a lot of things with that. I am all for, again, enhancements and beauty, but you have to take care of what's naturally yours first, and then you can settle in on the enhancements. The other thing is the hairstyle choices. I think some of these styles for children especially is way too grown up for a child. It's way too grown up even for teenagers. I look at social media, I'm like, this girl is only 14. She looks like 30. When we were younger, we were 14, and they're like, oh, you look 10. Now they're 14, you look 30. And not only because of the hairstyle, but I think it's because of the food for us. Well, us over here in the US. It's our foods that are causing a great portion of this, the hormones and things. So these little girls are 14 and they literally look like 30. Not to mention their hairstyle is super grown. They're wearing a lace front 30-inch bust down at 14. I don't even know why you need that. Like, it's in the way if you're actually doing your childly thing. Because childly's not a word, but if you're doing the things that are appropriate for your age. But again, they're no longer really doing those things. Kids don't even go outside to play. How can you go outside at 14? And I used to run track too. We used to have races up and down the sidewalk. I mean, I have strawberry scars on my knees because of it. We used to put up crates to do the hurdles and all of that. At 14, at 15, at 16, kids are not doing that. So they actually have a different lifestyle. And I think it's because everything is so advanced now. We have all this technology at hand. They are looking at all of the Kardashians and this one and that one. And what a Ari Simone, or I don't, that's probably not even her name, but I think her first name was Ari. These girls, and this is where they're getting their inspiration from. We were getting our inspiration from Vanessa on the Cosby Show. We were getting on the Facts of Life, and they were like, little girl, they look like our age. So I think that's the other thing, the hairstyle choices. Wigs, back in my day, the wigs were for the grannies, the grandmothers, it's for everyone these days, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a
Yeah,
I was
so
gonna say that's a good point.
the edges, we always like I'm a come from the era where we wore baby hair. It was our actual baby hair. I still have baby hair now. However, my baby hair is actually gray now, which is really so like, oh, the hair is gray. It's so crazy. Um, but we actually, it was our natural baby hair. We weren't like cutting 3 inches into our hairline to make baby hair. We weren't wearing
Mhm.
wigs and laying down the baby. Those little curtain things that, ugh, it's just a lot. You guys, children, let the children be children. Let the
Yeah.
teenagers stay teenagers, because the adult life is not really where it's at. And you need them to be their age for as long as they possibly can. The
Yep.
other thing is when they're wearing these styles, they're looking, it's like actually, I guess, adding to the fact that they already look more mature. And we have predators out here.
Mm.
And that's a bad thing, because you never know. People have fetishes, and you see this 14-year-old girl and she has this 30-inch bust down middle part. She's all cute looking like a Barbie doll. You just, I don't know. I guess it's a thing where I don't have children, but I would not have this for my child. I have a 28-year-old niece that's soon to be 29, and she's
Mm.
never had a relaxer
Okay.
influence. She has a very amazing, her beauty regimens, like she's on point. Like her skin is amazing. She takes care of her hair. She takes time with her hair. If she can't make it to the hair salon, she knows how to actually do her hair herself. And it
Mm-mm.
looked nice and it looked presentable. And she feels good going out with her hair that's been styled by herself. So I think that, again, children learn what they see. And
Mm.
if you teach them young, we raise them up in the way they should go. This is how they're going to be in the real world when they are adults. So I know I went on a tangent all over the place, but this is a really like near and dear to my heart topic. So
Yeah, like I said, I think the big takeaway for me is I think it's really important to instill that confidence into kids when they're young. To be like, actually, you don't need to change your hair up every 2 weeks just because people think that that's what you should be doing to stay up to date with whatever it is they're trying to stay up to date with. You don't have to have like a wig at the age of 14. You don't
please don't.
need to, like, it's not necessary. Like, you as you is enough. You are fine as you are. And if we're instilling that into them, that they are fine as they are, when they want to make changes, the changes are purely out of curiosity versus I have to do this because if I don't do this, I'm not going to be considered like X or Y enough, or people won't take me seriously, or, people will make fun of me. It's like, actually, you are enough as you are, and you don't have to make all of these changes and enhancements to be accepted. Just because you're seeing big grown people do that. Big grown people, and again, with the influence of social media,
I
with a
like that, big
completely
grown
different
people.
budget. That's why big people who have the money to be doing what they're doing, and maybe they have a stylist to do those things, and if they're getting a wig, it's a super high quality wig, and if they're getting their hair braided, it's by somebody that really understands what they're doing, and it's not just a friend in school or a family member that does hair. Like, there are so many things that kids won't think about because they're just being kids. And if we can instill into them that, you are good enough as you are, can we get to a point where if they want to do something to their hair, it's out of curiosity instead of out of pressure? Because I feel like a lot of this is because of pressure, not because it's like, oh, can I do this thing with my hair? Because I'm interested in trying that out, you know?
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like the quality of the hair extensions or the
Mm.
wigs actually plays a big part into, because the synthetic hair and wigs have a lot of chemicals in them. And
Yeah.
as a small child, younger child or girl, and then as you get older into teens, that's like, you know, unnecessary exposure
Mm.
to like direct chemical intake. And you can acquire certain allergies and reactions and things to that. And sometimes those synthetics, like I can't wear synthetic. I got braids once as an
Mm.
adult, actually probably 5 years ago. And
Okay.
on day two, I had ants crawling on my scalp. I had to take the braids out. I was allergic. We did all of the rinsing, ACV rinsing, and all of that. I bought the quality hair, and it didn't work for me. And I literally day two, after paying all that money and spending all that time after a long work day, she came to my work, did my braids. They were amazing. I got the look that Beyonce had on the Vogue magazine where she had big, that style. It wasn't even a lot of braids, but it
Oh,
was
wow.
like I could not get off that train fast enough to run to my apartment to get those braids out because it was driving me crazy. And that's the thing, like you're exposing yourself to that. And if
Mm.
you expose yourself to that and you are allergic or you're having a reaction for too long, that too can damage your scalp.
Mm.
It could cause, different scalp conditions. It could also cause like hair loss if
Mm.
it gets, you can actually go into shock too when you're
Mm.
having a reaction and you don't do something about it. So that's the thing. The other point that I wanted to make, which I thought about earlier when you were speaking, is we think about and I'm just going to drop this here for all the beehivers, and that'll be my final takeaway. But when Beyonce used to get so much slack about not combing Blue Ivy's hair,
Mm. Mm.
with her natural fro,
Yeah.
and as long as her hair and scalp was clean, she didn't have cradle cap on her scalp,
Mm.
and her hair was clean. That's all that really matters. It's not always about the aesthetic. And look at Blue Ivy's hair now. It is long, it is flourishing, it is
Mm.
thick, full, healthy. It was bouncing and behaving. And y'all talked about this little girl, something
Mm.
terrible, because talked about Beyonce actually for not combing her hair. But you don't have to do so much, especially to a little girl's hair. Like it's
Yeah.
not that serious. If you're not okay with your natural texture and your afro, then okay, brush it up in a bun or something, but you don't have to over manipulate. I feel like they wanted Blue Ivy's hair to be looking like Beyonce.
Yeah, there is something of like, and that's actually more of a problem because it's one thing for kids to be influencing other kids, right? It's another
Yeah,
thing for adults to be expecting, oh, every child's hair must be like perfectly done in a very like pristine style. And it's like,
yeah,
no, actually, their hair can look nice without you doing 500 different things to it.
yeah.
It can be a simple style, be done really well. The hair can look really presentable,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not doing all this craziness with their hair when their scalp can't even cope with that right now. And
Yeah,
you're there damaging their hair follicles from the age of 3 because you want
yeah,
it, because you, as an adult, want to make their hair look cute by what you deem as cute
exactly.
instead of just letting the child's hair be.
Because you're not comfortable because the child has no idea. Like,
No.
and this is actually teaching the child to embrace her natural texture that grows from the scalp. Like, yeah,
Mm.
you moisturize it, you shampoo it, you brush it, but after, I mean, every little girl, I call it the sponge hair. As little girls, we typically a lot of times have sponge hair. Like your mom can
Mm.
comb it, and by the time you get to the sleepover, it's already spongy and frizzy. That's just like the personality of a child's hair. And
Mm.
I just think that I used to read those comments. I used to shake my head like, this is so ridiculous. So the first time when Blue came out with her little blowout and it
Yeah.
was flouncing and behaving, and there were other people in the comments saying, now Blue Ivy's hair, she got more hair than all of y'all put together. So that they need to see it. Because when people do that, and they're pulling the little girl's hair too tight and all the like. I was a baby, a child. I didn't have hair as a baby at all. And then eventually I grew to have too much hair. So when you're pulling the baby's hair so tight to force it into those little barrettes or those little, or you're using rubber bands or whatever you're using, it's just too much. We just have to stop, guys. Like,
Yeah.
just let the kids be kids. Kids, yeah, gain, get your inspiration from your other friends and things like that. But if it's something that's not sustainable, like you say, Jade, or something that you have to force,
Yeah.
then just don't do it. And don't go to your friend that knows how to style hair to lay your lace front, because you're probably going to leave with no edges from the glue ripping all your hair out and get infections and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We have to do better about, children, teenagers, and adults alike. We have to do better about caring for our natural hair.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the last point from me, um, just on the comments on Blue Ivy and her hair. Like you said, a lot of that came from grown people.
Yeah.
And that's a problem when that level of judgment, again, what do kids do? They observe how people behave, and they particularly observe how adults behave. And when they're at adults, they think it's acceptable to criticize a child's hair that much, because the reality is Blue Ivy at that point, she's a teenager now, right? So at that point she was a baby, she was a child. And grown
She's
people
12.
think she's 12 now. Okay, so
Not
she's
even.
almost a teenager.
Yep.
So she's a preteen. So at that point, she was just a baby, and people thought it was okay to go all over the internet and make those comments about her hair, and and continue to make them as she got older. She got older, and now that her hair's, almost waist length, now people have nothing to say. It shouldn't take you seeing that someone's hair is thriving to stop criticizing them.
Yes.
But that's the reality. Is that's what it took for most people. Is I need to see that her hair looks of a certain condition for me to be quiet.
Yeah.
And it's that level of people thinking it's acceptable to just judge.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's the problem, and a lot of the issues that we have are stemming from like heavy judgment when there's no need to be doing that.
Yeah.
And again, if it's coming from adults, then what chance do kids then have? Because they're thinking, okay, if I don't have my hair in a certain state, then I'm just going to have noise. People are going to have something to say. I need to have a different hairstyle for every photo. I need to, and this is something completely different. And people may or may not agree with me, but this is where the stupidness of I can only wear an outfit once comes from.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you spent all that money to wear it once? Okay.
I'm not sure they will agree with a lot that I've said either on this topic. However, these are our thoughts and opinion, and a lot of what I said is factual, and coming from a professional point of view, and not just a personal point of view. Also, when it comes from within your home where you're supposed to feel safe, like if your mother is telling you, "Oh, your hair looks a mess," or "Oh, your hair is out of control and nappy and kinky and unpresentable as it is, we have to put this hair in it for you to be able to look good going to school." Like that's a totally different thing. So it's more than just even the appearance of the hair at this point. It's more about what's going on the inside and how this actual child or teenager is feeling about themselves on the inside, as a person that, okay, my hair that grows from my scalp is not good enough. So what do I do, and what can I do to change it? And it's causing self-hate. And we have too much self-hate going on as it is.
Yeah, there's enough pressure from other areas. We don't also need it from inside the community, from ourselves, and that shouldn't be going towards other adults. It shouldn't be going towards other children.
Yeah.
And yeah, one thing is that if you don't, I feel like we need to live by the standard of do unto others as you would have others do unto you. If you wouldn't want to post something online and have 100 people criticize you then don't do it to other people.
Especially your child, because a lot of y'all would be fighting folks over your baby and the comments they made. Beyonce has not slapped one person, and she should have slapped millions at that point. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I wouldn't have blamed her, but it feels like there's a heavy amount of judgment. Children are being influenced by it. And like we both said, us as a community need to do better so that kids are in a position to make better decisions, feel more comfortable, feel more loved, feel more accepted, and feel like they don't have to do 5,000 different things to their hair for it to be like acceptable. I feel like this is also a big topic that we may not even, that an hour probably isn't even long enough to cover, if I'm being honest. So it'd be really good, interesting to hear what other people think about this. So anybody that's been listening today, also share it with other people that you know. I'm really curious to see what other people in the community think about this. So like share the podcast with others in your community. If you have any comments or any thoughts on why we are in the position that we're in, where there are children that are basically growing up too fast, is I think a summary for what we've been saying. Is like kids are not acting like kids anymore, especially with their hair. Why do you think that's happening? I'd be really curious to know why other people think this is happening, and also what you think we can practically do to try and stop it.
Yeah, I agree. I am curious to hear and would love that you guys drop us some comments to let us know your thoughts on this, or even your insight or personal experiences, or maybe you have some thought that is in opposition to what we've actually said, and a rationale behind it as a parent, or just let us know. It's a topic that, again, an hour is not long enough. However, I think we could probably resume at some point in another way, because there are products that are specifically for children versus products that are not children's products, like they're kids lines, and then there are lines that are not. And so do we use the kids line or do we not? So that kind of ties in to this conversation when we're speaking about the babies. So I love the kids, y'all. I'm if I see y'all doing something to the kids' hair, I'm coming for you. I'm not gonna be like Beyonce. For you. I love you.
I'm with you on that. We need to do better. But I will also say, agree with Cataanda. If you have an opinion that's really different to ours, then let us know in the comments. The only thing that I will remind everybody, and I say this every week, is it's okay to have different opinions. We don't have to come for each other's necks just because we disagree. We can respectfully disagree. Let's just do that, please. Don't make me have to ban anybody from the comment section. Please. Yeah. Difference is fine. Respectfully have a different opinion.
Yeah. Healthy debates are encouraged.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to have sameness. That doesn't help. Everybody being the same or having the same opinion isn't helpful. What's helpful is when you can talk about the difference from a place of you're curious to know why people think the way that they think. But on that note, thank you to everybody who's listened all the way through. It's been a great episode. Thank you again, Cataanda, for all of your words of wisdom as well. Like I said, leave comments with your thoughts on this particular topic, and let us know if there's anything else you want us to discuss in upcoming episodes too.
Yes. Thanks. Bye, guys.
See you in the next episode.